Welcome to the show. It's May 7th. Glenn, who's on?
Oh, we've got Yann Freitag from STR. We've got Jamie Lane from CBRE and Scott Shatford from AirDNA. That's right. We're going stat crazy today, Anthony. All right, welcome to our daily broadcast where every one of my shirts looks like a Saturday Night Vegas shirt because of the way that it all gets all wackadoo over there. Anthony Melchiori, how are you doing today, sir?
It actually looks like a Saturday Night Bar Mitzvah shirt.
I know, but I'm getting very worried because Bar Mitzvah is going to have to change. I'm not sure we're going to be able to do those traditional candle lighting ceremonies anymore. We're going to have to stand 6 feet away from each other. I have to pull out those large barbecue matches, I think.
You know you're old when you say that that's a Saturday Night Vegas shirt. You know you're old.
Well, we're a couple of old guys. I got the AARP stalking me for membership coming this November when I turn 50. So we'll see what happens. But today, Anthony, we're going to be taking a deep dive and taking a look at all those statistics with all of our favorite industry folks out there, right?
Yeah, and I was hearing a couple of stats as we got onto the show, and I'm really interested in breaking that down. So let's go.
All right, let's do it. All right, starting off the show with us, we got Yann Freitag, SVP with STR, and Jamie Lane of CBRE Hotels. And do not worry, Scott Shatford from AirDNA will be joining us when it's time for that part of the conversation. Yann will go. He'll give us all the hotel numbers, and at some point, we'll switch places with him. Yann, where are we right now? What are the latest numbers, and what do we have to know about?
Gentlemen, good morning. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me back. We have some not terrible news to report.
Hey, that's amazing.
That is indeed amazing. So last weekend was a good weekend. It was sunny. Beaches were open. Some states let their stay-at-home orders expire at the end of April. So May 1st, 2nd was the first real weekend that we saw. Let me just rattle off some numbers here. Weekend occupancy for Galveston, Texas, Texas City, Texas, 57%, Daytona Beach, 45%, Corpus Christi, 63%, Panama City, 50%. So yes, occupancies are up, and it implies, the leisure travel, just as we had suggested, Jamie had forecasted, we had forecasted, leisure travel is coming back first in drive-through markets. It's exactly what we're seeing. Now, for the week, the RevPAR decline for the nation was still 76.8%, so it's still an abysmal number. But hey, it's not minus 80, which is what we had seen. So minus 76.8 counts as not terrible, only bad, I guess. So that's what we're seeing, and that's an encouraging sign that people are definitely ready to head out, to the beaches, to the drive-through destinations, to the national parks, what have you. Now, are they all maintaining social distancing, 6 feet apart? We'll see about that. But so far, I think it was an encouraging weekend for the U.S. hotel industry.
That's great. So, Jamie, love to hear from you. How are you seeing things? Not terrible, just plain bad. What's your vibe out there?
No, it depends on what stats you're looking at. Following the economic statistics, they're going from bad to worse. And we saw another 3.2 million unemployment claims this morning, which was more than what I was expecting. I was expecting it to start coming down more, but now we're at 33 million people that have filed for unemployment over the past 2 months. And for what that means long-term for lodging, and that could sort of prolong the recovery as we wait for more people to get their jobs back. But there are green shoots coming in that we're following. Week over week increases in the TSA check-in numbers are actually up. More people are flying today than they were 2 weeks ago. So it looks like we hit the bottom in mid-April, and we have nowhere left to go but up. And then in the sort of the restaurant data we're seeing from OpenTable, the occupancy data we're seeing from STR, it does look like as the economies start to open up in different markets that there is pent-up demand. People are willing to take the risk and start to get out of their house, go to the beach, go to a restaurant. and get out there.
And what are the increases in the TSA numbers?
It's very minimal.
I got the exact numbers right in front of me. On May 6th, it was 140,409. The day before, it was 130,000. But the day before that was 163,000. If you look back to where we were, the trough really hit on April 15th and 14th with 87,000 and 90,000 through.
And last year we were 2.5 million.
But today last year 2.27 million. And fluctuating by a couple 100,000 each day, depending on the day of the week.
And the question remains, there's two questions, right? All these hotels and the national parks and everybody's struggling to figure out what's the right way to open up and keep everybody safe, right? And I see different levels of who's doing it right and people's attitude towards doing it right. But really, the elephant in the room is, okay, we're getting 60% in Texas. We're seeing really good numbers. But what does that mean for the next wave of it? And I think we can really go down a rabbit hole here. So I don't think we should, because we don't know the numbers. We don't know what's going to happen. But I don't want anybody to think that we're not thinking about that. So when you hear these numbers of 50 and 60% occupancy, if everybody's being safe and everybody is taking precautions, I think we'll be okay. But if everyone is, as I saw this morning when I ventured out to go get a bottle of Lysol because I ran out and there's only one bottle of Lysol in my whole neighborhood, and I found it. And the gentleman that sold it to me had his mask over here, and he had a really big nose, and it was all sticking out, breathing it all in. And so I think if we're being safe, I think we'll be okay. But I don't know. So I think that's a question that we can spend an hour talking about. But maybe we should just hit on it really quickly and then move on
and get back to the numbers. Yes,
we have unfortunately, because there's not a federal mandate, right? We have 50 different Petri dishes. We have 50 different, ways to look at this, and we will see a year from now or 6 months from now, what worked and what didn't. I know people look to China, people look to Sweden, people look to Germany. We will have our own comparisons here in this country. So we'll see, is opening up on May 1, was that the right call or not? We'll see. I think the COVID testing data will show it, and obviously then if they spike, then our occupancies will decline, and then our data will show that too. Or not.
And looking at the data from China today on what's happening in their economy as they start to open back up, and we're talking with our offices out there. They're calling it revenge consumption. So it's a massive recovery in overall economic growth. And is what we're now saying in our projections for Q3 for the overall economy. So if we start to open back up, let's say, and now for many markets, but sort of national average out in early June, that we could start to see a pretty significant recovery in the economy in Q3 as it starts to open back up.
I like that word, pretty significant recovery, Anthony. That makes me feel pretty good.
And that's really good news. And what would be interesting is when they opened up and you start seeing revenge spending and you start seeing the numbers stay down, I hope that we do the same thing here, but our cultures are different, right? They're probably a lot more strict with their standards than we are. So that would be a very interesting, even as they open, they're strict. So it would be very interesting to see the two different cultures and who spikes, who doesn't, and where we are. So I think that'll be an interesting report card.
Yeah, Beijing was still locked down a little bit longer. They just announced the People's National Congress, which is the first real big event in Beijing at the end of May in 3 weeks. And it's going to be interesting to see how that works. I heard that people are not allowed to fly directly into Beijing. They have like other airports around, and they get shuttled in or maybe quarantined first, get their temperature checked. So if that meeting works and comes off without a hitch, then that probably means that China is going to be really, really open again. If we see an uptick in cases, then maybe not.
Right. And that does bring some good news, and more good news coming out of China is that the Disney company announced that they're going to start to reopen the Shanghai Disney on May 11. They already started to open some components of shopping and restaurants. So I know they closed earlier, but at least that's a bellwether of some of the good news that hopefully we will start to see here in the United States soon enough.
And I'm very curious. because Disney has always been so phenomenal at line management, and making the line part of the attraction. What does a line in a 6-foot world look like?
It looks like I actually have an answer to this. Both Disneyland and Walt Disney World here in the United States are going to be launching virtual queue systems. So it's kind of like an electronic fast pass. You get it on your phone. You say, oh, I want to go on that ride. And it'll be like, all right, you got a reservation. Show your phone here in X amount of minutes and come on back. And then they will have spacing that will do social distancing between the folks that are online waiting, and they will be cleaning vehicles in between every single run on individual rides. So fortunately, they're going to start with like 25% capacity in the United States when they relaunch, but doesn't mean that the lines will have a short wait because of all the additional protocols that they have to put into place.
You're just not waiting in line. You're working in a virtual line.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And isn't it fascinating? Every day you realize how much information he has in that little brain of his.
Little tiny one.
Well, Glenn, I have a question to ask you about lines. What does a line look like for a 747 at an airport with social distancing?
I don't know, because I'm not going to an airport anytime soon. But yeah, I totally get your point. Because if you think about it, it's like they say up front, there's like first class only, and then everybody from first class to zone 73 jumps online all at once. Right?
What I'm hearing is it's 50% occupancy in first class in Delta.
Well, that's what Delta said yesterday.
Right, 60% occupancy in economy. There's going to be boarding from the back of the plane. They're going to leave the middle seat open. So, again, it's we have to take baby steps. But on one hand, we got to go. And on the other hand, we got to be safe.
Right.
What's that?
Jan, you're going to say something?
First class. No more middle seats. That's great.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, well,
it's all first class.
We can only hope. But yesterday we mentioned on this show right here that Frontier Airlines will be charging between $39 and $89 to keep that middle seat open. So it's going to really come down to what customers have the capacity to be able to handle in their own personal lives and how they want to get involved. Anthony,
do we have any numbers on manufacturing in China where the percentages have been up? Does anybody have numbers on that?
I could certainly look it up because I've got access to the internets right here. So let me do that.
Because what I'm seeing, which is really interesting, is I'm seeing the delays in shipping. I see more things available, but I'm seeing delays in shipping. So one of the things Amazon's been really good about is when you ordered something, things were coming. And now things are just not coming for sometimes weeks, and sometimes they just say it's not available. So it's very interesting. In the first couple of weeks, everything was coming on time, and now I'm starting to see a major lag in everything that's being delivered.
Yeah, for sure. I got some numbers, but Jan, why don't you talk first?
No, and translating that into the hotel space. So the number of rooms under construction peaked, as it does right before a recession, in March at 215,000 rooms, the largest number we've ever recorded, But to your point, Anthony, we're hearing anecdotally that people have a hard time getting doors or tiles, and so that's going to push the number of rooms in construction out from the actual open date, maybe Q3, maybe into Q1 of next year or so.
That's right. So speaking about China manufacturing, industrial production dropped by 1.1% year on year in March 2020, according to tradingeconomics.com. But that's after a 13.5% plunge in January and February, and compared with market expectations of 7.3% fall due to a partial recovery in economic activities as restrictions due to the outbreak were gradually lifted.
So you're saying that 1% decrease was year over year, or was it
year over year? So if you're looking at year over year, that's not too.
So hold on a second. So based on that number, you're saying that China manufacturing is almost exactly where it was in 2019 in March?
Yes, right. It had a drop and then it came back.
Wow, that sounds interesting.
January and February, way down. March started to come up. So we're not looking at an aggregate for January, February, and March. We're just looking at those March numbers, I'd say 1.1%.
No, year over year.
Yeah, year over year, right. Mm-hmm.
No, I like when I ask a question again, how you go back to the kindergarten way of teaching. I like that. That was good.
Yeah, that's my, but you know why? Because my wife is a kindergarten teacher and she's been working from home for the last 2 months. So now I've really got it down. So Anthony, that was really great. I love how you said that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Jamie, save us. Say something smart.
And And
we got numbers guys to laugh. We've done something today.
I know.
Your job here is done.
Yeah. All right. So, but is there any insights that we can take from these numbers that we haven't already discussed, Jamie, in terms of the hotel side? We'll get to the Airbnb soon enough when we bring on Scott.
Yeah, I was just pulling from sort of the other sectors within commercial real estate that CBRE tracks as well, and we are seeing and leasing activity, transactions, and starting to resume in China in April. Not back up to 2019 levels, but they're well off the lows that they were at in February and March, which just supports the overall growth of economic activity and pretty quickly. And something I keep going back to, and Yann, it's looking at STR's data, is just how quickly demand returns after prior shocks, whether it's after 9/11, after the great financial crisis. And yes, it takes pricing to get back, and we can probably discuss for hours on what past pricing practices have meant. And just in terms of overall demand and how quickly we get back to pre-shock levels, it's amazing how quick sort of people can get back to traveling, and the memory of whatever restricted them before sort of disappears.
But so the question is, Anthony, what are you telling your clients who are like, I don't know how to price my room for Q3 or for Q4? Our argument is like right now, last week, ADR was down 40%. That number is a funky number because it's a mix shift. There's a lot more rooms being bought on the economy side versus on the luxury side. So it's just sort of math, quote unquote. But once room demand comes back up, how do you price a room knowing that we have 20% unemployment, little corporate, and no group? What do you tell them?
Anthony, finally, he's been muted.
2 days in a row. So what you look at is I have a report called the Oscar, right? So I've been working on it for 30 years since my Plaza days, and I look at last year's numbers. So I have everything from what the weather was to what my competition was, my pacing, how many rooms went up, how many rooms went down. So I have a really good understanding of where my numbers are. So what I do is I'll get rid of my group, I'll get rid of my corporate, and I'll just look at my transient, and I'll look at my average rate for my transient. Okay, then I'll look at what that average rate was compared to my comp set overall rate, and then I would make a decision. I will definitely not be reducing my rates, especially if it's in the summer, especially if I'm in Texas, especially if I'm right on the ocean. I wouldn't be reducing them from the get. What I would do is I would put my price up. Okay, that was kind of where it was last year, and then watch my pacing. Watch how far it takes me to get to the same percentages I was 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out. And then based on that, I would start changing my pricing. So, but if you just make an assumption, one of the things you never want to do in revenue management is make an assumption. You want the numbers to make the assumption. I've never made a decision in my life in revenue management. I've always made the numbers make the decision. So you have to have data. So whether it's 2 weeks data or week data, but you have to start putting data together. Not saying you're not going to reduce your rates. I'm not even saying you shouldn't reduce them a little bit. But if you start saying, okay, our rate was $199 last year in transient, so let's go to $79, you're not increasing demand. Like I said last week on the show, the decision's going to be at the kitchen table. Is mommy and daddy and the children, are we ready to go on vacation? Yes. Where are we going? Where our budget's tight. So we're not going to the Four Seasons, so we're going to go to the Hilton. Okay, what does that look like? Well, it's a clean hotel, and it's a good rate, and I can trust Hilton, so I'm going there. Well, maybe I was a Hilton hotel last year, and now I'm going to go to a Motel 6 because I can't afford the Hilton hotel. So I think it's not really so much a pricing as it is what is my standard for this vacation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The other conversation that we're having, I was listening to an owner's call yesterday, and a bunch of people are saying, look, the brand standards are too expensive. They're killing us, and we can't open our spa. We can't really open our restaurant. We don't have any meeting space. So if you think about that, do all these full service hotels look like limited service hotels? And can they maintain a price premium, or are we just going to have one STR class? But
I
it's
literally
ultra luxury, and then the rest of it.
those words came out of my mouth. Where was it? With the general manager, when we were talking to the general manager, I literally said that. I said full service hotels are now limited service hotels, and everyone's going to be used to it. And if you're keeping your standards of service and your standards of cleanliness at the same rate, and you're doing a grab and go breakfast, if it was a complimentary before, but it's grab and go, you're going to be okay. You're going to be able to maintain your rates. Okay, you're going to be able to maintain your rates. But I don't think, in my personal opinion, if I go to a full service hotel and all of a sudden the restaurant and bars are open, is my expectation going to be that the rate is 50% lower?
Right.
No, it's not. It's that, is the room clean? Are people wearing masks? Are the elevators clean? Is there something in the elevator for me to clean the buttons? Do I not see my housekeeping card on the floor? Are people not handing me a key, but they're basically, I'm just picking it up? Those are going to be the standards that I'm willing to pay for. I'm okay with not going to a restaurant bar. That's my decision, not your decision, even if you closed it. But I'm not okay with going into a hotel that is not spending money on the 6 or 7% cost per occupied room that's going to go up on cleanliness and on touch points. So that's how I see it.
I know in your TV show you always wanted to burn the duvets. Are we finally there? Not the duvets, but the bedspreads. Are we finally burning them all?
Oh, I think we did a good job of convincing 90% of America to get rid of them. So I think we did a good job. But the white duvets are still going to be there. And again, it comes down to when I see those duvets, somebody delivering them or on a housekeeping cart, are they in plastic? Because if they're in plastic, I'm comfortable with it. If it's just on a cart or somebody's handing it to me with no gloves on, no mask on, I'm not comfortable. Now, again, at a Hilton hotel, or again, any branded hotel, I don't want to just say Hilton or Marriott, any branded hotel, if that level is there, then I know that's expensive. Intuitively, as a guest, I know that they have more people on, there's more cleaning products, and they're doing everything the right way. So the restaurant bar, it's not their fault. Should they reduce the price a little bit? I don't know. I'm going to make an assumption based on my safety, not on not on amenities.
I want to take it back to the numbers about what it's going to take to get people in the property. Now, Klaus Kohlmeyer, we know him as the chief evangelist over at Ideas. He's saying in the comment room that pace is shortening considerably, and many companies are working on special recovery offers, not touching bar, but specific fenced offers that can be turned on and off according to demand. That's the approach that I like to see people take. That way they're not lowering the expectations of customers. I mean, lowering the price expectations of customers, and it'll be less deleterious, I think, to people over the long term. Yann, does that strategy make sense?
I mean, it makes sense from where we sit, from a data perspective, from a revenue management perspective. You know, the question is, if your hotel is half empty, 70% empty, is your owner going to let you do that? Mm-hmm. Or are they going to say occupancy, whatever it takes, Now, I've heard of these other strategies now that these days you clean a room deep and then you let it sit empty for 48 hours for 3 days or so, and then tell the guest, hey, your room has not been touched by anybody. You're completely clean. It's completely clean. And you can walk in there. So do you create your own compression that way? And you basically have a 100-room hotel, but 2/3 of all the rooms are always out of inventory because they have been cleaned, And does that give you a little bit more pricing power? Mm-hmm. I don't know. But so I hear what he's saying, what you're saying. It's we have always, Jamie and I were joking about that, 10 years ago, you're only as smart as your dumbest competitor.
That's right. And we joke about that in every single downturn and it's not even the dumbest competitor. It's the most frightened competitor. It's that mom and pop business that hasn't been educated in hospitality school that thinks they're making the right decision, but they're actually hurting themselves. And that's really what we're competing against right there. Right, Yann? And maybe Jamie, you could bring in a comment on that. Just make sure I unmute yourself.
So, yeah, I mean, we just published for the first time our monthly P&L data, and it is indeed frightening. For every dollar in revenue, if you were in New York City, for every dollar you brought in revenue, you lost $1.25 or $1.40 in EBITDA. So that's the type of data that is now coming to the forefront. For the longest time, people have said, RevPAR is it, and that's still true. But, GoPAR, EBITDA per available room, those numbers becoming so much more important. So that what the pricing decisions that you're making are hopefully driving your bottom line, not just your top line.
Right. Jamie, what do you think?
Yeah, and we're seeing it as we sort of change our underwriting methodology within our valuation group and our brokerage team on just what is considered fixed costs today and how does that compare to 2019, and what labor costs are really fixed compared to what you can operate at. Our friends at Hotel Effectiveness have just been showing us and what are staffing levels today, and where resort and full service hotels have been able to reduce labor as much as 90% while still keeping their hotel open. And if we move to that hotels are not cleaned in between guest stays, rooms are being left open for 2 or 3 days after the guest stays, that staffing levels it'll probably take much longer for them to get back to levels that we saw previously, and may not ever get back to levels that we saw previously, given the same occupancy levels. So that will help somewhat, but probably offset some by the additional costs associated with cleaning and keeping higher standards going forward.
Yeah, and I don't know
housekeepers because they can't clean as many rooms, because now cleaning a room takes, whatever, an hour, and maybe you need more staff. I don't know, but I hear what you're saying, Jay.
Yeah, and what's the data? I have not seen any data on keeping a room empty for 2 days helps. If you clean it the correct way, and whether you electrostatic, or whether you fog it, or whether you just clean everything in the room physically, and then change every single sheet and towel like we're supposed to. I don't know what the benefit is of keeping that room empty, and I don't know. I'm not a proponent for it or against it. I just don't know. And I think that's another thing that we have to. Each brand is doing a good job and is getting the real information, getting what doctors are saying, infectious disease specialists are saying, and I think that information has got to be considered. Also, one of my questions, and it's kind of a silly question, but are people being given when you're evaluating hotels? Like, how do you evaluate? Like, what's the percentage you say COVID-19? Okay, you get a mulligan. We know that this is going to be temporary. When I say temporary, maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. So we've got to evaluate based on this mulligan, based on this moment in time, and we really can't just look at the numbers. We just can't look at all the things we've looked at before. How do you equate for that?
I have some thoughts on that, but Jamie, do you want to go first?
You can go ahead.
No, he's just happy not to answer it.
No, so I think this is, force majeure, act of God, whatever you want to call it. My sense is talking to people in the lending community, they're absolutely fine with extend and pretend and saying, look, we know this isn't your fault. You are a smart guy. We gave you money for this property. That business still stands. You're still a smart person. That didn't go out. Our assumptions in terms of demand have changed, maybe changed drastically, but we also know that it's temporary. Looking at what's going on in China, looking at what's going on in other countries in APAC, this will be an interruption, a very, very severe interruption, but only a temporary interruption. So I think my sense is that when it comes to debt service, that lenders are more than happy, especially if it's on their own balance sheet, to just tag on the next 90 days to the end of the loan and say, don't worry about it. We got you. We have a relationship. Maybe 120 days, whatever it is. CMBS, slightly different story, but also there, I got to say,
my next question.
That people are like, it's that the special services are like, look, we know you're going to get some cash flow back. There's no, by the time we get through the foreclosure process, it's maybe 2022. Right. And if we're selling today, Jamie, jump in here, but what are you getting? Like a 30%, 40% haircut on what you paid for it in 2018? Who wants that?
Right. And the other thing we're seeing is just, and lenders trying to get comfortable with how are these hotels operating during 2011, 12, 13, when we were sort of in the depths of the past recession, and just what the overall economic impact is. So remove what's happening in the COVID and the 20% occupancies, but once we get out of this into 2021, and it's just the economic impact that's really impacting hotels. Hopefully, by then, is what does your operating metrics look like then? Compare that to 2019. Were you already underwater in 2019, and this is just exacerbating it? Or were you doing okay? Because those hotels that were already struggling during peak times, this is just going to make it hurt that much more, and not much to be said there.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, we have really good data for the last recession. It just happened 10 years ago. So a lot of us were there. A lot of bankers were there. A lot of owners were there. I think there's just a lot of inherent knowledge, in this industry of like, how did we handle it? That yes, this is much more severe, but I absolutely agree with you. My sense was in 2019, but that the ratings agencies who rate the debt and the acquisitions were already saying, look, I can't take the 2019 values. They're not real. They're too high. Let me just look at 2017 or 2016 as a more stabilized year, as a more real year. We know that 18, 19 were sort of outliers on the positive side. This is certainly an outlier on the negative side. But I totally agree with Jamie. We can go back to 2011 and say, what did we do then? How did we handle it? What did the debt service look like? What did our RevPAR look like? And compare that.
Right, Jamie, quick question for you. Do you think the investor owners will just give up on these types of investments? Good question.
That is a good question. And talking with our brokers today, we do know there's a big sort of disconnect between the big bid-ask spread for hotels that is going to cause, and really any transactions over the next probably year. And unless there's the assets in distress, the owner needs the money, there's an impetus for something to trade. And if you can hold on to the asset, you're going to do it. You're not going to take the 20, 30, 40% discount that maybe the investors want today. But if you can extended pretend, you're going to do that. And then once we have some clarity coming out of 2021, that hopefully brings the ask and bid more in line with what expectations are, and the people that need to trade will.
I actually heard an anecdote yesterday that somebody was cycling out of office space because he's like, look, office that's not the way that people work anymore. Office real estate is actually not what I want. But hotels, we're now on the bottom. Like, this might be the opportunity to jump into hotels. So that's the other side.
That's interesting. And remember, we've been talking a lot on the show about how we're going to see an acceleration of trends, and moving away from traditional offices is one of those big trends we are already seeing well rooted in society. All right. So before we move on to the Airbnb type of stuff, Yann, you have any final thoughts? Any of that kind of good stuff that we need to know about?
Just when you talked about hotels, I was talking to a GM over in Baltimore, and he's like, look, I have 400 rooms. I'm selling 20 rooms a night. 10 of them are to people who live in a 2-mile radius because they can't get anything done at home because the kids are driving them insane. So we're going to see the shared office space in a hotel coming near you, if you need, and you just sell them as a day room. I mean, you use it as a full room, but people just use it for the day. So.
And I've been seeing more and more brands offer up that opportunity. I think Red Roof, I want to give them credit because I think they were the first one I saw that was out of the gate with this idea. And since then, I'm seeing pretty much every hotel out there saying, hey, come and work with us. Have a nice, safe hotel room. I love that people are smart enough to pivot and think about ways to drive new audiences to their properties.
And it's a good thing that my kids are in their dorms right now, because one of their rooms would be my office.
Right.
I would turn it into a permanent office. I wouldn't let them back in. But I think this is really good knowledge. And, I think the numbers are an important part of what we're talking about. But we're still not there to know exactly what's going to happen. And I think what's going to get everybody's attention is what you say is there's 50 petri dishes around America, and people are quoting what you said online right now. And each one of those petri dishes got to take care of themselves, because if we don't, then nobody can travel. So if half the country is in good shape, half the country is not in good shape, you're still not going to get back to traveling.
Exactly.
All right.
And my
Jamie?
final comment there, if I can, is
of course.
And past recessions took anywhere from 6-8 years to recover from. This one, we are expecting a much quicker recovery overall. And our current expectations, not sure how this compares with you, Yann, is we're expecting a 3-year recovery in terms of nominal RevPAR. So where we're at in 2019, compared to, we're expecting sort of mid to late 2023 that we're going to reach those levels again.
We're 2 quarters behind you. Then
Okay.
We're a little bit later than that.
So, but then you compare that to 2001, 2008 recessions. They were much longer to get back to previous peaks. So that's, and sort of one bright side in terms of both STR and ours current expectations.
And what is that? What both your assumptions? What is the foundation of that? Like, what's the biggest what's the biggest reason for that?
Always GDP.
Yeah, GDP and employment. So we're expecting GDP and employment both to be back to 2019 levels by mid 2022. So a 2-year recovery in GDP, and then due to sort of pricing pressures, pricing always lags demand in the hotel industry. That it's going to be a good 3 years before RevPAR and ADRs get back.
So the 33 million people unemployed, what percentage of that is hospitality workers, service workers? Do we know?
It's a lot. The number I saw was if you combine hospitality with retail trade, that's half of it. So retail and hospitality, so the industries impacted most is well over half.
All right, excellent. Well, we got to move on to our next segment. Yann, thank you so much for being here, man.
Thanks,
we will see you again, I hope, in a few weeks from now when you got more numbers to share with us. All right, let's get into some Airbnb. All right, joining us, Mr. Scott Shatford of AirDNA. I love this guy. I've had a chance to interview him on my podcast prior. Again, get a chance to hang out with him at these events. I love that you've always been tracking those Airbnb statistics. You were in there kind of first. Maybe we could start off by telling a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure, happy to. Thanks, Glenn, for having me. Yeah, I'm the founder and CEO of AirDNA. We've been tracking Airbnb, VRBO for the last 5 years. Really trying to track them like hotel assets. It's just a bit more complicated because there's 4 million different operators out there operating 10 million properties and all doing different things with those properties. So, we've been trying to figure out how to, scrape partner with different providers to figure out really what's happening in the short-term rental space. And so, yeah,
I love it. He's also he's a real scrappy entrepreneur because he had units and he's like, I can't get numbers on this, so I'm just going to do it myself. So I love that part about you. Scott, what are you seeing out there in the world of Airbnb and VRBO? Airbnb is not having a good week. They just laid off a quarter of their workforce, 1,600 people, I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty brutal out there, like it is everywhere in lodging. Let's be honest. I think Airbnb is, a little bit more insulated than, traditional hotels for a few reasons. But, it's catching up to everybody right now. I mean, the numbers aren't great. March in the U.S. looked okay. It was only down about 12%,
right,
month to month. But April,
that's because people still didn't fully grasp what was happening and were in the process of winding down.
Yeah, February is not a great month for vacation rentals anyways, right? And so, we get into March, there's lots of spring break. A lot of people extended their spring break trips. A lot of people, got out in New York and went to the Hamptons. And so there was still a lot of, vacation rental activity in March. But, in April, it's a different story, down about 45% in the US month to month and about 70% in Europe. The vacation rentals are, they're booked longer in advance. Typically there's a book 3 months in advance or 2 months in advance. And so, we still see a lot of, bookings on the calendars in, June, July, August. People can't cancel those very easily. You don't get a full refund when you cancel on most of these platforms. And so until they can get a full refund, those things will stay on the book. So, there's still some life out there. I can say that we do see a little bit of a rebound where we see new bookings this first week in May are up about 25%.
Wow.
Over what we saw in April, as an average, new bookings by week. So we do feel people are been pent up in their homes for a long time, looking to get out, looking to drive to, a place to go spread their wings, get out to a lake or mountain to go have a little vacation. So, we do see some hope, but, it's been a pretty rough week for Airbnb and VRBO, just like everybody else.
When you're saying it's up 25%, that's week over week, or is that year over year?
Yeah, and that's just thinking about what was the average weekly bookings in April versus the first week of May, new bookings.
And what about you, Jamie? What kind of numbers are you bringing to the table today?
Yeah, so I've been looking at Scott's data, and it does look pretty weak through March.
Not the data, the results of the data. We don't want to insult Scott here because his stuff's great.
Right, the results of the data.
Right.
And I was looking at some of the statistics coming out. It does look in like many of those drive-to markets, the demand's coming back, whether it's along the same markets that Yann was speaking to, and very much leisure drive-to destinations. But I had some questions for Scott. And Scott, I know we debate this all the time and over the past few years on what's going to happen to short-term rentals during a recession, because it's been the industry's major question and do short-term rentals actually increase their share because they reduce their price more than hotels are able to? Do the 33 million people that are out there that are unemployed, do they start renting out their units, and all of a sudden we see a huge amount of new short-term rental supply come into the marketplace?
Right.
There's a lot of unknowns right now that I know over the next month or two we're going to have a lot more information. And just, have you seen anything there yet?
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, we have had lots of sort of hypotheses about what's going to happen here, and nobody expected this. What we can say is that supply has been pretty stable, right? And you would think that in normal times people could get rid of their home, their second home, put it on the market, but that's not really an option right now. Will there be a flood of new vacation rental inventory this summer? A lot of people think so, right? A lot of people, we do believe that people are over leveraged. People had their fourth investment property in Airbnb. They didn't have any sort of operating, cash reserves. And so, this hits them hard and they're going to have to get out some properties. But on the other side of the equation, like you said, there's 7 million second homes in the US alone. There's only 1.4 million total vacation rental properties. So how many of those 6 million properties that are sitting vacant around the year round are turned into vacation rentals as people are hungry for income? Now that extra $50,000 a year sounds pretty appealing, where last year it was just too much of a hassle. So we do believe that there's going to be probably more supply when we look 6 months out. But there will be a shuffle up. There will be people that were overextended getting rid of properties, but there will be a lot more people looking for opportunity, looking for make some money, looking to pay the bills that will get onto the platform.
And how does a owner differentiate himself differently or herself from their competition? There's going to be more supply. Meaning, how do I know that room is safe, that building is safe, that apartment is safe? Like, what are they doing to prove to their customer? Yes, the brands have standards, hotels have standards, but so do we. Like, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What's the creative juices flowing around that industry?
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously cleanliness is top of the list. So, I mean, the good thing with the Airbnb is there's a review system, right? And cleanliness is one of those stats, right? And so people trust that and have to rely on that. If you have 5-star cleanliness rating from your last 100 guests, people have to sort of buy into that. Are people doing, claiming to do deep cleanings? And, there's just not that same sort of reputable brands that people traditionally go to that sort of they can have that comfort in. And so, yes, in the headlines, is everybody talking about cleanliness? Or is everybody saying that there's going to be a 24 to 72 hour spacing between guests? Yeah. And Airbnb, you guys may have seen, is making that an option. So you can't have anybody check in within 3 days. And it's making it mandatory for a 24-hour spacing between guests, moving forward. And Airbnb is the only one that's taken that step so far. But, hey, cleanliness is the name of the game, but it's also about why vacation rentals we think will thrive, right? Vacation rentals are single family homes in a, large plot of land with automated check-ins and no lobbies and elevators and stairwells, exactly. There's none of those options, which make it, more isolated sort of a stay,
right,
where you don't have to have any of that personal interaction.
And you're going to go in, mama and daddy bear are going to go in before the kids get out of the car, clean everything, and then they're going to feel safer. That's a really good point, because you don't have hallways, elevators and things. And once I go in and I clean everything, I'll feel better.
And I understand that argument in the sort of destination markets, but what about major cities where the vast majority of hotels compete today? It is the Airbnb
Right.
and Vrbo units are in apartment buildings, they are in condos with the same issues that hotels face of lobbies and hotel or elevators, and a lot of those units being managed by some of the more professional guys. And I've been thinking and hypothesizing with our team that, and where we may see more long-term supply in the destination markets, that actually short-term rental supply would be significantly lower long-term in major cities. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I always sort of felt previously that, in a normal recession, that these operators that are master leasing, call them big apartment buildings and putting them on Airbnb, they had a really nice operating model. It's very cost effective, very low labor force, and then they could compete on price and sort of beat out hotels, right? Mm-hmm. But they are competing directly with hotels, right? And they can't really compete on these standards, right? On that comfort level. If you're going to go to a hotel-like property, you're going to choose a hotel right now. How quickly does that rebound? We don't know. How many people will survive that have invested in multi-family style Airbnb units? It doesn't look good.
Well, going directly to that point, Alana, you've got a number of great comments that you're making. The first of which is a recession such as now will flush out the bad operators, maybe force them into long-term rental scenarios, which will do that. And then she also says those with cash will be able to buy short-term rental properties. Banks will not be lending on them anytime soon. And then finally, maybe Airbnb needs to refocus on the fact they're a software company and matchmaker, not an operator. Ooh, that's a little bit charged right there. How do you guys see that one? Ed?
I don't think they've ever been an operator, right? I think, the focus for Airbnb, they were nibbling around the edges of like what it would look like to be an operator, to sort of own that full booking property manager and owner of that asset and what that would look like. But I don't think that was ever really realized in any, real way. I think that this is a wake-up call for Airbnb. They aren't an OTA. They're not going to kind of really try to compete with Expedia and Booking.com.
Right.
They're going to try to think about what separated them from the beginning, which was having unique properties, unique experiences, unique hosts that you couldn't find anywhere else, right? How do they get exclusive supply? How do they have that only on their platform to make it to the only place you have to go to find, an interesting place from an interesting person to do new and interesting things, right? And so, I think this is a wake-up call for Airbnb that they got to go back to the basics and what, really separates them from any other sort of OTA in the marketplace.
Right. Anthony, you got some brilliance to share with us?
Yeah, I actually don't, but I'll try to figure it out. Listen, I understand her question and it makes sense. But I think Airbnb saying it's a 24-hour mandatory separation between guests, I think that is their responsibility. Is it their responsibility to go and make sure every single hotel or every single, it's hard to get the hotel word out of my mouth, to get every room clean? No, obviously not. But that's good common sense. They have the ability to not let somebody rent for 24 hours. So I think, yes, I agree with you. They should stay out of the operation, but they absolutely should get involved where they can from a technology standpoint. And I think that's just really good leadership.
I already see renting out. This is hypothetical. I do not have an Airbnb property, but I see renting out my Airbnb property Monday to Wednesday on Airbnb, and then VRBO Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and then Airbnb Sunday, Monday, Tuesday to get around these regulations.
Yeah, and I'd hate to be the person that gets caught doing that because there's going to be somebody sniffing around trying to catch you, and you don't want to be that person. It's unfortunate that we're in this situation, but we all have to be fair to each other and we all have to protect each other, or no one's getting back to travel. So there are people going to think like that. Those are, as far as I'm concerned, you're breaking the rules and then you should be thrown off the platform.
Right. We got a question. Dan Dragovich says, Scott, offering a guarantee might give your customer a fresh breath of feeling safe. What do you think about a guarantee?
What does that mean?
I don't even know what.
Guarantee
I don't know. I feel like we're circling around having some sort of standards put in place and all of that and some sort of statement. But there's always problems with that too.
Airbnb has always been very guest focused, right? And often to the detriment of the host. And that's why there's a lot of professional, property managers leaving the Airbnb platform today, is because they are very focused on the guest, and they will give you a full refund. If you check in and say, this doesn't meet my cleanliness standards, 9 times out of 10, they'll say, great, we'll stay up at a local hotel free of charge. We'll get you another Airbnb that meets your standards. I don't know what the host themselves can offer as a guarantee, but Airbnb is usually pretty responsive to guests that don't feel safe or that meets their cleanliness standards.
Well, I think what I am telling my clients are show them in a video, show it on social media, show how you're cleaning a room. Okay, have somebody clean the room, edit it, show how it's done. So if I was an Airbnb operator, I would absolutely be showing video. I would absolutely be having a checklist of what we do. And I would, again, you can't guarantee anything, but I would have like a seal of approval. This matches my seal of approval. And the only thing you're going to have, after that is the guest commenting that stayed during COVID-19 saying, wow, they had masks for me, they had gloves for me, they had Lysol for me, they had all kinds of cleaning products for me. I felt clean, it smelled clean. This is a safe place. I felt safe. That's all you can ask for. You can't give a guarantee. It's all you can ask for.
Right. Yeah, you really have to review, like rely on the reviews on Airbnb, because everybody in their title says, we have a 100-point cleaning process, but that's just lip service. They want to see that somebody's been there in this post-crisis time and said it was incredible. We had the best and most clean spot, and that's going to give people the confidence.
Yeah.
To properties.
We had somebody say, well, I'm going to tell my housekeepers they have to do a better job. Okay, good luck with that.
Yeah.
And Scott, maybe that points to and what you're saying around professional operators moving away from the Airbnb platform. If guests want the sort of the brand associated with their stay, whether that's in hotels and wanting to stay with the big brands with the guarantee that they're giving, or with short-term rentals and staying with Airbnb and the guarantee that they can make that. And during recessions, you generally see guests move towards the big brands that they recover first. Mm-hmm. And then it takes some time for the independents and smaller operators to get the same benefits of the recovery.
I just don't know if there's like a kind of a clear apples to apples comparison in the vacation rental world.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah. I mean, even though, there is like a Vacasa out there or Sonder, Vacasa maybe has 20,000 units worldwide out of 10 million properties. Maybe they have 1% of the supply in the US. That's the biggest brand we have, right? And so do most consumers know to go to Vacasa and trust Vacasa more to book their stays? No. And so there's not that sort of same awareness of the brand, trust in the brands, and the quality and consistency of them. So I don't really see that happening. There are types of guests that go to the same property year over year and they love their brand, but that's a really small portion of the vacation rental market today.
Well, is Airbnb the brand though?
Is Airbnb become that brand? That's what I think they would like to become, that brand. I think all the steps that they've taken over this crisis are different than everybody else, right? 100% refunds, no question asked. We're going to put a 3-day gap in between stays and make that an option for people to make sure cleanliness standards are there. All of these things have really pissed off their host community, but at what they believe is making them the go-to brand to book vacation rentals with confidence in the recovery period. How that will pan out, do people really realize that they're taking steps that are costing them hundreds of millions of dollars to hope for that sort of brand identity and brand sort of, what's the right word? That they stick with that brand? I think it's too early to tell, right?
But in my opinion, I'm sorry, Jay, you want to? In my opinion, this is a customer-based business, right? So this is about the customer. So you can piss off all the owners you want. The customer is going to make that decision. And you're telling me that Airbnb is doing all these standards? I'm in. I'm going to Airbnb. The others aren't. I'm out. So it's going to be a client decision. So all the owners could do whatever they want. It's I'm going to choose what's safe for my family.
Totally agree. I mean, the suppliers will go wherever the demand is. And I think that's the big gamble that Airbnb is making, is that, they might not like it. They might not like getting online here, but if this is where all the demand is 3 months from now, they have no choice but to come back.
Think this opens the door to new competitors?
I think, what this is a wake up call for people to do more book direct, right? And it seems very like accelerated what the hotels have gone through the last 10 years. The vacation rental industry is trying to figure out how do they control their own destiny. And so I don't know if it opens the doors for new competitors, but I do think it opens the door for people getting more savvy about how to get more book direct to their little portfolio properties in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And that's just like from traditional, websites and PPC and organic search. Like, how do they not rely on Airbnb and their whims in the future? I don't know if would emerge though.
Are you hearing that? Is anybody that friends calling saying, "Hey, just get rid of it. I just want to get rid of it. I'm just afraid. I'm not interested in dealing with this. I want out." Have you been hearing that, or more like, "I'm doubling down. I'll figure this out. I'm going to look for other properties that are in danger, and I'm buying more"? What are you hearing?
Yeah, it's a mix. It's a mix, and the mix is really the delineation is people that sort of fell into Airbnb, didn't really know what they were doing, got over leveraged, bought 6 properties, couldn't afford it, right? And these guys are going under quickly and they need to get rid of those assets. And there's a lot of people that sort of just like fell into entrepreneurship with Airbnb, but weren't qualified to really run a business and really not qualified to have $7 million in loans on properties out there. And so, but the people that are professionals, that they see this as a time to get deals, I'm getting the calls from all of the sharks in the water. They're all circling around these properties, waiting for them to hit the market and go scoop up some deals. So it's definitely a mixed bag, just because that's what the Airbnb host community looks like. It's anybody from grandma renting out, their, additional dwelling unit in the back to, people that have bought 300 properties. And so the people that are doing this professionally, are well prepared for this. They're looking for good deals out there. And I think they'll scoop them up this summer.
Right. I think that's a really good place to end this segment, because I know, Scott, you've got to get going. Any final thoughts from you, sir?
Final thoughts. I don't know, man. I think everything's coming back. And I think it's going to be interesting. As Jamie said, supply is going to be added to the platform. We just, we can't really manufacture demand right now. There's no way to really have people get excited about listing a property now that there is just such low booking demand. Where we do see it coming back is almost at 2019 levels for us right now. Destination markets August are really unchanged when we look at rate, right, when we look at occupancy, and in August time period. So we do see a lot quicker recovery for destination markets on Airbnb. We do feel like those urban markets are going to be decimated into 2023 or a time I can't even see into the future, right? But we do feel, drive-to destinations, 4-bedroom homes on a half acre of land, I think that's going to come back, really, really quickly, and as early as August in those markets. But yeah, I can't wait for it to come back, because it's not been a fun road over the last 6 weeks. So look forward to talking to you again in 3 months and seeing how we're doing then.
Jamie, what about you? Some good final thoughts for us?
Yeah, and we've been talking with owners and investors over the past few months, and I think consistent and follows up on Scott's comments is the smart money and sees that travel is going to come back, that hotels are a good long-term investment, and people are looking to get in now to be able to ride that upside into the future. So a lot of our clients are really bullish on hospitality coming out of this, and I think that says good things for the industry.
Yeah, and an entrepreneur, the upside is going to be delayed. It's going to be delayed more than you're used to. Like, you look at the recession, or you look at what happened after 9/11. Like, okay, I'm going to wait for my money, but I'm going to get in now and wait for the upswing. This is going to be more delayed, but the upswing is going to be greater.
Yep.
Right. Good. Well, I hope that's the attitude. Jamie, Scott, thank you so much for being here. And we got to have you guys on again as this story develops, because I want to hear some good news coming from both of you before August. So thanks again, and we will see you soon. Man, Anthony, really interesting perspective today on both the hotel side of the business and the Airbnb side of the business. But look at this comment. From Stacy Long over here. Anthony, you got her checking hotel rooms for everything. To be honest, if I want to travel, I'm not sure how it's clean. I work in healthcare. My idea of vacation is to go away and rest, not to go away and do what I'm always doing. I think that's a real concern for people.
Stacey, I think that's a great question. And let me tell you kind of what I've seen over the last 9 years. I go through an airport, go to a restaurant, go to a hotel, and people come up to me every single day of my life and say, "You've changed the way I look at hotels. I don't even want to go to hotels anymore. I'm exhausted." Because I go in and I do, I'm worried. And some people say, "Hey, I go in and I clean it and then I feel better." And my answer is, you go in, you do what you would do at home. It takes you maybe a half hour, clean the room to your standard to feel really comfortable. Maybe even bring your own sheets and your pillows or whatever. Do whatever you need to do to make yourself feel safe. After that half hour, 20 minutes, whatever it is to get that room to your liking, forget about it. Just as they say in Brooklyn, just forget about it.
Forget
just
about
go.
it.
But I've been saying that for 9 years. There's some hotels I walk in, I feel safe, and I don't clean anything. And there's hotels that I basically put towels everywhere, which is Glenn has seen. You come into my hotel room and we're doing a podcast, and there's white towels everywhere. I was doing that, but that made me feel comfortable. It took me 30 seconds, and it made me feel comfortable. So get comfortable, spend a few minutes, and then forget it. There's nothing else you can do. So you shouldn't not want to go on vacation. I am going to travel as quickly as I possibly can. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to take personal responsibility for my health.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I guess it's really up to you and me and each and every one of us in order to feel safe and secure wherever we're going to be.
And what I really think is interesting, if I can give our own show a shout out.
Yeah.
If you look at our show over the last 6 weeks or even the last week, the interesting content that we have and the people that we have, we're just talking about real numbers, real statistics. We're talking about really what's happening in the market. And, you really can't get that anywhere else. And so I'm learning, like I'm going to be on another news station, I think next week again. And like when they say, are you prepared? I'm like, I've been on this show for so long that I'm really prepared because I have more information than anybody, I think, because of all the great guests we're having. And I know we can't announce it yet, but we have 2 megastars coming on.
Yes. We certainly do. And I can't wait to announce those mega stars. We're that close to having it. But let me say that I think the major brands are starting to listen and their defense mechanisms are falling. And they're going to finally, some of them may be coming on here.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think it's defense mechanisms at all. I think it's they have employees. They have real estate investments. They have so many things at play and they have thousands of people to deal with that really their messaging is the last thing on their mind right now. Now is get control of the reins, get control of what we're doing. And okay, now what does our messaging look like? You heard Rob say it the other day about Motel 6. It's like we're not ready to message yet. Yep. That looks probably more like August, September, October. So I appreciate it, and I think we've shown them it's not a risk to come on here.
That's
We're not doing anything to catch anybody. There's nothing to catch anybody on. As long as you're telling the truth and being honest and vulnerable and transparent, I think you're fine. So another great show, my friend. And again, I'm going to shout out to our producers, Jeff and David. Thank you for helping book all these people. So thank you so much. And you too, my friend. And your cat's making an appearance every day now.
It seems like it because I keep forgetting to close my door to keep them out of here. But you know what, Anthony? I want to learn more about how to be successful in hospitality. If only there was a place called Hospitality Success I could find online.
So Hospitality Success, we're writing some manuals, we're writing some standards. We're going to be putting them out in a couple of weeks. You can sign up for our Hospitality Success program. And also you can sign up for our consulting business, hospitalitysuccess.com. So we're coming back online. We stopped our business, Hospitality Success. We did everything for free. We're coming back online now as businesses are coming online. They need more time. They need more help. So we're doing that. We're working overtime on that. And have you noticed, I have, in some elements of my life, I suffer from OCD. Have you noticed what the last OCD thing that I fixed and corrected? Have you noticed?
I don't know. Which one was it?
Wait, which side? Did you notice?
The lighting or the?
This was shiny yesterday. Remember they were.
I do not have OCD, so I did not notice that.
So it was like every time I look, I was like, that shine is driving me crazy. So I got my where I sign autographs with, and I got my black what do you call it thing out of my bag, and I just made it black, so I feel better.
Well, I will say that this bothers me. I get all the glare when I put my head up too much, but then when I look down like this and not directly at the camera, that feels strange too.
Okay, so besides what bothers me and Glenn, what are we working on for tomorrow's show?
What are we working on for tomorrow's show? While I'm looking up what we're working on for tomorrow's show, I don't even remember what day of the week this is. I will say, subscribe. Yeah, tomorrow's Friday and Feel Good Friday. But I would like to plug this. Sign up for my newsletter, our newsletter, No Vacancy newsletter. Text the word hotel to 66866 for more great content. We got all the shows throughout the week. We got all sorts of other stuff. This weekend, we're going to be featuring all the cleaning standards that all the different brands have put out, so you can see them all side by side and understand what's going on. Now, tomorrow, we're going to be feeling good because it's Friday. Oh, it's 2 weeks later, so we got back those Joe Rice and Mark Gavin to give us some more information on how to empower our careers. But Mark is going to help us on LinkedIn, help us get rid of some of those stalkers that we don't like, those the solicitations that we get that we don't like, all of that dark stuff that really bothers us here in the LinkedIn community.
And tell him he could take my LinkedIn page and break it down. That would be great.
Yeah, excellent. And I will be here to make jokes that Anthony's going to get annoyed about.
Are you doing any drinking tomorrow?
Still working on that. We didn't get our stuff, so we may have to do something on our own. But after that, we got a great deal with the company. We're going to be doing week after week after week, and we're going to be posting all the recipes ahead of time so we can all do it together.
So we can call my friend in Miami who just opened up, and maybe he could be on tomorrow.
Yeah, let's do that. We'll talk about that offline. We do want to drink. It will be Friday. We want to feel good, and that's the best way to feel good.
And so you don't have to drink alcohol. You can drink whatever, it's non-alcoholic. So it's not about the drink. It's about just coming together as a community. For all those people that have sent me DMs saying, Anthony, I don't think it's a good idea to have alcohol. I'm just telling you, you don't have to have alcohol.
Right. You don't have to have alcohol, but this is the hospitality industry. So we're sorry that some of you don't drink out there. Oh, God. Have you not been to any of these industry conferences in the last couple of decades here?
No, you have. You know the deal. I go in my room.
Right. There's a reason why I look so old, and I'm only 27 years old.
Wait, you know what? This is interesting. Why don't we, David, if you're listening, why don't we ask a booking.com or hotels.com exec to come on? We haven't thought about that, or have we?
We've sort of thought about it, but honestly, I haven't really put much effort into that. I will put more effort into getting those folks on.
Yeah, well. Let me see if I know anybody can get on. But I think that Gordon Guilford, thank you very much. That's a great comment. I think we should be having those folks on. I think that people really want to hear from them.
Yep. All right. Let's get out of this. Let's get out of this place. So remember, guys, you got one life, so blaze on. And thanks for checking in.